I'm sorry for all the times people asked you to do something for the church or asked you to do something for God, but didn't really give you the understanding that you were doing it for God. We sometimes just assume that. We ask, can you come do this? Can you show up for that? Can you serve over here? We're going to do this on this day. Who coming? But we don't always present it from the perspective of God has placed it on our hearts to do a certain thing. And we're going to do this for this particular purpose. We want you to be a part of that. Wouldn't that change things a little bit? I think it would change things if we came from the perspective of just being open and honest about what God is doing. Not just because I will tell you right now, and we're going to get to this key of credibility later on. There's some people that we just, let's be honest, they've lost some credibility with us. And if we had to do it for that person, we're probably not going to do it. If we don't like that person, you know, if you don't like the pastor, then whatever pastor say, it ain't gonna never be good enough for you. And you'll never want to step up because you're waiting to see if pastor gonna fall. But what if I'm not doing it for me? What if I'm doing it? I think we miss that sometimes. We miss seeing the roles that we play as a role that God has called us to. And so I think that's something we have to work on if we're going to learn how to be good volunteers. It says here, Titus volunteerism reflects the very essence of cheerful generosity. It was purposeful, spirit-led, and rooted in love. It was purposeful, spirit-led, and rooted in love. I guess what I've been asking you about the last couple of minutes is, are we making what we ask you to do purposeful? Sister Deborah, do you feel a sense of purpose when you come and you serve in the kitchen? Yeah? Okay. For those of you who are in the choir, how do you feel? Do you feel a sense of purpose when you come on Sunday morning?
Yes.
Okay. In the finance office, purpose. When we do other things, ministry-wise, purpose. Yes.
I think the purpose in the things that I do is what motivates me. Because just like a child, when they see the sacrifice of a parent, where the parent has displayed the love from a youth up, and when we look at that sacrifice of God as a Heavenly Father, if we focus on that and we keep that in mind, that everything that we are doing to the glory of God. And it will motivate us, and your spirit gets stirred up where it keeps you to doing it. It's just like you are just walking into what God wants you to do. And you keep doing it, just like a lot of times I feel like, well, I can't sit down sometime because if I see a need, I constantly go at that and try to do something about it.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think you're right. I think understanding and having a sense of purpose brings meaning to what we're doing. Because sometimes the doing of the thing, whatever it is, the repeating and practicing the songs over and over, or getting together all the materials to cook, or counting the money each week. Sometimes the doing of the thing may get monotonous, but purpose kind of helps you have the strength to press on through.
Yes.
And to do it in a way that honors God.
Yes, I think a lot of times that we would do more. And the reason that we don't do more because of distractions. And a lot of times what plays into part, and that is the kind of work ethic that he or she has. If you got good work ethics, however you are at home, you're going to be the same way away from home. But we have to kind of see how we can get around the distractions. because that kind of holds us back sometimes.
I would agree. Distractions do hold us back. How to get around them, I think it does still go back to purpose. Well, not just purpose, but also finding your place. Finding your place. Finding that place where you know that God is getting his best out of you, and you know that you're willing to give your best, something that gives you energy, something that brings you joy. When we find that place in the body of Christ that lines up with our gifts, that lines up with all of the other things that God has put in our lives, boy, that's a great place to be. That's a great place to serve. My friend Theron is always challenging me. He's like, what's giving you energy? What is it that motivates you? And he'll talk to me and we'll have conversations. He's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying about that. That sounds like that's going to be a lot of hard work. But this thing you're talking about over here, I hear energy when you talk about that. That's where you need to, because the things that give me energy are the things that I'll actually use some energy on. The things that don't give me energy, I'm probably going to slack around a little bit. I think, going back to what Sister Simmons said, as you grow in your relationship with God, and as you get closer to the Lord, you'll begin to want what he wants, and you'll begin to allow him to lead you, because it said not only was Titus, his generosity purposeful, but it was spirit-led, and it was rooted in love. And I think if we can help relationally all of us to grow to that place, we would see more people, step up.
Okay. Pastor, the spiritual gifts, some he gave one, some he gave many. I bless the church with flowers, not boasting or anything, but I get great pleasure out of doing it. And I think it's appreciated because you hear people say different things, but whatever I do for the Lord, I give it all I got, and I do it in love.
Well, and that's what we want for everybody, but we have to give people a chance to hear, like Titus, hear the exhortation, and then to respond. Sister Bird, I'm going to ask you to pick that mic up, because when you put it down, that signal got a little bad, and they started making a buzzing noise. So here we go. It says here that willingness is the posture of the heart, but volunteerism is that posture in motion. At some point, we want to be able to allow God to use us. We want to be able to allow God to move through us. Listen to this, and this kind of surprised me, down at the bottom of page 38. In churches across the U.S., volunteers are essential to keeping ministries alive and thriving. Voluntary service is often crucial for survival and growth, especially in congregations with limited resources. Volunteers may run media, coordinate youth programs, lead worship, usher, serve in men's ministries, maintain church grounds, and much more. Many churches rely on volunteers to fill roles they cannot afford to pay for. In fact, reliable data shows that volunteers make up the backbone of 7 out of 10 churches in the country. The volunteers make up the backbone of 7 out of 10 churches. But our attitude toward volunteers and our attitude toward church don't always match. Okay? There are people who look at the church. I want to say this the right way. There are people who look at the church and they automatically assume, boy, the church has a lot of money. That's the automatic assumption. That's what they think. And it's for different reasons. One of those reasons, which is just the truth, is that for some of us, our households don't have bills that are as high as the church's bills. Our households don't spend as much as the church spends. But when we see those dollar amounts, wow, the church has a lot of money. but the church doesn't. It really doesn't. But people have that idea. So when it comes to serving in the church, some people are like, I don't want to go over there, man, unless they're going to pay me. That becomes the attitude. I don't want to do something unless I'm getting paid for it. Or if I'm going to volunteer, y'all ought to be thankful that I gave you my time. You ought to be thankful I showed up. They have this attitude where there's a disconnect between them and the church, and they don't understand 90% of the people in our church, let's go ahead, 98% of the people in our church are volunteering to do the things that need to be done. That when we have special events and special days and folks come and they enjoy it, they enjoy, the trunk or treat, they enjoy the Women's Day, they enjoy the Mission Matrons Day, and they don't realize most of that was all volunteers that made that happen. That the people who count the money in the church are volunteers. They look and they'll say things like, I don't want to give all my money to that church. I don't want to give all my money to that pastor. Okay. I have learned something the last 10 years by talking to pastors that I think most people don't recognize. Most of the pastors I know are bivocational. They have a 9-to-5 job. A lot of the pastors I know are now retired. They work their 9-to-5 job and they're retired. And that nice car they're driving, they bought that with the money from the job. That nice house they live in, from the job. And folks will look at it though and say, we got this pastor and now he got this shiny new car. Well, he was working hard for that. But they assume that the pastor's taking all the money. And they have that assumption because of what they've seen wealthier pastors do in some bad situations where they did rob their churches. But a church of our size, But there's a disconnect. And because there's a disconnect in our understanding of the church, the value the church has, the resources that the church has, there's also a disconnect in people wanting to be able to give their time and their service freely. I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about even just giving your time. So these are things that we have to put it all back into the right purpose. Why are we doing this? Have our relationship with God where it's supposed to be so that we can serve the Lord, not men, not our ideas. So we have to just, even when I look at the state convention and I look at all of those people who serve in different capacities, all of them volunteers. They're volunteers. Congress of Christian Education, we're volunteers. They're kind enough to be able to say, we'll give you a check, and they know the check is not a whole lot when they give you something, because the preacher gave me the check and said, hey, take this, go buy yourself a Snicker bar. Because he knows you teach for 4 hours for 2 days. He knows that we can't really pay you to teach. So we just give you a little something to say thank you. It's a love offering, basically. But everybody was volunteering. The people in the back office were volunteering. The ones doing the registration, volunteering. We have a volunteer workforce, but we have to make sure we treat them right. Okay? And it starts at the top, but it needs to be everybody knows how to treat people who are serving. Okay? So here we go. On page 39, first thing, remember the volunteers work for God. Volunteers work for God. If they volunteering in the church, they're not volunteering for me, they're not volunteering for Lily, they're volunteering to do something that God needs done. They volunteer for God. That's who they work for. And because they work for God, we need to treat them right. We need to treat them like they are God's employees. We need to treat them with kindness. We need to make sure that we show them that the value of everything they do is important. We have to know that the volunteers in our church, they work for God. I have to do that from a leadership perspective, make sure that I value each person that serves, but guess what? It's got to happen down here with the rest of our members as well. Because, if I walk up to somebody, I'll just use this as an example. Let's say we got 5 people who serve and to give food in the line back there. They volunteer on Women's Day to serve everybody food. I have to sometimes go to them people and say, I thank y'all so much for serving because I know how bad we can be. There's somebody that got mad with you because you put 2 less green beans on their plate than somebody else's. Or you told them they couldn't have that 3rd chicken wing. And they don't care. They just ask and talk to you any kind of way when they're in the line because they don't value you. So I have to value them, but I wish our members would value one another. You see somebody serving in our church, remember they work for God. And we need to encourage our volunteers to join in what God is doing. Not just ask them to, as I said before, not just ask them to do a task, but to join in something that God is doing. And I will tell you this. Part of it is because I do a lot of things and I'm capable of doing a lot of things. But the other part is I just respect people enough. I don't want to ask anybody to do something that I'm not willing to do. And I think that we should have that same attitude when we're dealing with people who are volunteering in the church. Because there are some things I depending on the day of the week, there's some things I might not do. You know? So I want to make sure that I'm encouraging people to do what God is asking to be done and let them choose how they want to participate. We need to do that for people who volunteer. Here in the book, there's something interesting. It talks about this overlooked group of volunteers. That's the external volunteers. Down at the bottom of 39, paragraph before the last one, it says, an often overlooked source of volunteers can be found outside the church walls. Many people in the community are willing to lend their skills and time to practical needs of the church. For example, a food drive may draw in neighbors who are happy to help pack boxes and distribute meals to families in need. A college student might volunteer to teach social media or media equipment skills, or a police officer might offer training on safety and security. If you've got people, they may not be a part of the church, but they're willing to serve, guess what? You might want to get those people to come and serve, because while they're here, prayerfully, we would show them enough of God that they would get to know the Lord a little bit better. Because there are some folks that I can tell you right now in different industries, you go to a church to serve and sometimes people get treated bad by church folk. Church hurt. But they get treated bad by people in church. So when we have somebody from the outside come in and they want to serve, okay, let us find a place for you to serve. Let us do it. I'll never forget, we had youth at Greater Friendship who would invite their friends to come to church. Friends don't go to our church, but friends want to sit with our youth while they're in the choir stand. Yep, go on up there. You can sing. We'll give you some lyrics. You sing right along. It's all right. I know you're not a member, but it's all right. I was at Vacation Bible School this past week, and over at First Baptist Church West Ensley, they had an agreement with the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority brought 2 van loads of children over to their church every night for their Vacation Bible School. Well, one night, they asked a question. Who want to read a scripture? Little boy raised his hand and said, me? His brother said, boy, you can't read. Pastor said, that's all right, we'll figure it out. They invited him up there and told him what to say and led him through Psalm 23. Not a member, don't know nothing about no Bible, can't read, but wanted to serve. Another child, I want to hold the flag. He don't know nothing about no flag. He just holding it. And was having fun holding the flag. He wanted to do something. And I think that there are people who would come to church and be more involved if we made room for them to join in the work that God is doing. Okay? So, the other thing, can you put that back on the screen, Faith? That fourth one, was that the one, show God's love to volunteers. So, go to the next slide. Here's some ways we can show love to volunteers. Appreciation events, if we need to do one. Meaningful tokens of thanks. Meaningful things. Recognizing milestones. Maybe they've served for a while. Or maybe they came up with an idea that really helped the church. Let's recognize that. Personal development. I know you're volunteering and I know you're giving your time, but hey, I want to help you be better at what you're doing. Here's a course you can take, you know. Here's a class you can go to that will help make you better. Provide training, provide resources. You know, you don't want to be the volunteer and you don't want to pay to volunteer. Can we give you the resources that you'll have everything you need so that you can volunteer? These are all just a few things we can do. What are some other things we can do to show some love to volunteers? Say thank you. Yes. Say thank you. Gratitude. What else? Oh, wait, hold on. Be deliberate, purposeful, and make sure it's meaningful. Nobody want no half-hearted thank you. Be sincere about it. Anybody else? What other ideas? What else could we do to show love to volunteers? Support what they're doing. Oh, wow. So, as a pastor, I know that some things won't go well unless I support it. But guess what? Some of us can support some things too that we see those volunteers doing. To step up and say, I want to help with this. Or I can help provide some resources for this thing that you're trying to do. So showing support, that's a good one. What else can we do to show love to volunteers? Show appreciation. I think she turned that mic off. Show some appreciation. That's a good one. I like that one. And there are different ways to do that. Because sometimes that appreciation needs to be personal. Because once somebody's worked with you long enough, maybe you know something about them, and then you want to show your appreciation by giving them something that means something to them. You know? Or something that you gave to them, but it meant something to you, and they realize you gave them something that meant something to you. I think that that's important. I have a friend who went to Africa, and the people in Africa, wherever he went, the folks gave him an African name and all of this. And I've been seeing this pen that I know he would love, and I keep telling myself, I need to buy that for that guy. I need to buy that for him, and just to encourage him. It's just like being thoughtful toward the people who are serving. Those things are very important. Anybody else got another idea how you can show love to volunteers? I got one. Give them a day off. A day off. Sometimes we work people to death. Let's give them a break. Give them a meaningful break. Do something. I mean, if you got the same people doing the same thing every week without fail, or every day without fail, and they're just expected to do it, and they just serving out of the kindness of their heart, still give them a break. Let them know you appreciate them. Give them some kind of break. Buy them a sandwich or Subway. Do something. Or tell them they don't serve that day and you serve in their place. Do something to show them that they truly are appreciated. You know? Okay, so here's the other side of that, though, from the perspective of the volunteers themselves. And this is kind of where we're going to end up tonight. But in the book on page 41, there's a list there. And this is what the heart the heart of a volunteer is about. If you're going to truly volunteer for the Lord, here you go. You got to remember that volunteering is more than just filling a spot. Everybody hear that? It's more than filling a spot. It's a response to God calling you. When your heart is in sync with His plan, serving feels like a privilege, not a chore. Isn't that amazing? When you really feel like you're doing something and you know you're doing it for the Lord, it feels more like a privilege than a chore. So remember that volunteering is more than just filling a spot. And I say that because I've been in church meetings before. I've been in some church meetings where it's like, we need somebody to do X, Y, Z. And eventually somebody say, well, ain't nobody else to do it, I'll do it. Just to put a warm body in the spot. But no, if you're going to step up, this is an assignment. This is an opportunity for you to be used by God to help advance His kingdom and to bless your church. So it's more than just filling the spot. How about this? Keep in mind that every role matters. Every single thing we do. You've heard me say that before. It matters. It matters if you're the person who is preparing the food. It matters if you're the person who God has called on you to be an encourager, to encourage other people. It matters if you're teaching the children. It matters if you're greeting the visitors as they come in. I think it matters because I see Deacon Bird, for example. I don't know how he does it, but sometimes Deacon Bird can catch some people before they leave. I don't know how he doing it. I think his rollator got a motor on it, but he will catch somebody before they leave because he wants them to feel welcome. That one thing, that role matters. It matters to the kingdom. Also, serve with enthusiasm. It says here, like Titus, step up because you genuinely want to, not because you feel pressured or obligated. You have to have some enthusiasm about what you're doing. If you're not enthused about it, nobody else going to be enthused about it. If you don't have no joy, nobody else going to have no joy. What do you prefer? Do you want... Can you tell that sometimes when I preach, I feel it? I feel the good and the bad. I feel all of it. But what if I was just up there just reciting words? We wouldn't be here long. Well, guess what? It's the same with everything else we do for the Lord. If we don't exhibit the joy of the Lord, if we don't have a passion toward it, how can you be used by God to compel men and women to want to know who God is when you just kind of so-so about God or so-so about how you serve it, okay? Here's one that says, when God calls you to serve, try to say yes quickly. Just try to say yes quickly. Don't wait or hesitate. Trust that He will guide you and use you in amazing ways. Don't put it off. Don't hem and haw about it. I can understand with a lot of big decisions. When I have a big decision, a really big decision, in the past I was using my Gideon method. I'm gonna put the fleece on the ground. And if the ground is wet and the fleece is dry, we good. And then I'm going to put it back on the ground. And if the fleece is wet and the ground is dry, I'm good. I would do that for big decisions, but I've even got to the point I don't do that anymore. I realize as I'm trusting in the Lord, as I'm growing in my relationship with God, that I'm hearing Him. Okay, that's what you want me to do, God. All right, I'm there. I'll do it. I'll do it, whatever it is. And I think that when we do that and we really trust Him, He'll make a way. He will make a way. Here are a couple of that I don't have on the screen, but go the extra mile. Just go the extra mile. What was it, Sunday? No, about 2 Sundays ago, it rained. Y'all remember that? It started raining after church. And I was having a conversation with one of our sisters as she was leaving, and her car was a long way from here. I grabbed an umbrella. All right, let's go. Walked her to her car. Go that extra mile. Go do something. Show people the love of God, because God went the extra mile for us. He did the most for us. You know? So don't just do the minimum. Take initiative, put in your best effort, and look for ways to improve or add value. Okay. I need to read that again. Don't just do the minimum. Take initiative. Put in your best effort and look for ways to improve or add value. I hope that we get to the point that the whole church, everybody in the church would take on my mantra. If it ain't broke, keep looking. That's my mantra. If it ain't broke, keep looking. Because what happens is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, allows you to stay right here and never improve, never get better, never take any initiative to try to make it just that 1 degree better, to do that one extra thing. It's the curse of complacency. It's the curse of just doing enough to get by. And I don't think I serve a God who just did enough to get by with me. Even now, he's doing more than I can imagine. He's helping me get over, not just get by. He's helping me to rise up. He's helping me to be a better person, and he's blessing my life. I don't think I can just be mediocre. Next one. Keep your heart open to God's leading. When you do, serving stops feeling like a task and becomes a meaningful, joyful experience. Hey, let me ask you something. You ever been out in public, somewhere else, grocery store, mall, I don't know, out of town, traveling, and God called on you in a moment you weren't looking for, to do something, to show some kindness, you know what? We need to be looking for that. We need to be looking for that in the church. We need to be looking for that everywhere we go, for an opportunity to be used by God. Because once we do, and we know what that voice, the voice of God, sounds like, it'll make serving him that much easier. And watch this. Notice the joy that comes from serving with purpose. Your contribution strengthens the church and brings fulfillment to your own life. That's the thing I love the most, personally. I love the feeling of knowing I was working with God to do something, that I partnered with God to accomplish something, that I did something that blessed somebody else, that I did something that helped somebody else. I started to recognize that joy. And I think that when we serve, we need to be asking ourselves, am I beginning to receive that kind of joy from the Lord? Can I just be happy and joyful about what God has called me to do and how he is working through me and what he wants to accomplish in my life? That's something we should look for if we're going to be volunteers. Now, a lot of what we covered tonight on volunteerism, I learned that I had to go to a class, and it was a part of my certification when I was working with East Alabama Youth for Christ. I had to be certified to be a youth ministry professional, and they knew that everybody who worked with us was a volunteer. So they had volunteer training, which was training us on how to treat volunteers. And I think the church needs that. I think the church needs that. Now, we've just covered some things tonight, but I just think in general, universally, the church needs to know how to treat the people who are freely giving, who are freely serving, who are going out of their way, who are wrecking their own schedule, you know. That's one of the things when Jesus said, "There's no greater love than you lay down your life for a friend." Sometimes laying down your life is laying down your schedule, and there are people who wreck their schedule just to come and do things for God. I think we need to know how to treat them, and I think that if we're going to be the ones serving, we need to understand the value of the service we do, and do it with all our heart to the best of our ability. So what do y'all think about this key of volunteerism? Is this one that's hard to unlock? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at everybody in here serve in the church. Listen, these are the committed serving folk in here now. They tell you got like 20 people who do everything in the church. They all right here. They're all right. But I want you to be aware of it so that you can see the way you serve a different way, and then so that you can also encourage others to serve and help them understand why their service is so important, why their sacrifice is so important, okay? Any other questions or comments before we go?
Yesterday evening, me and my wife were down in Demopolis, and we was in the Walmart store. So I told her, I said, I'm going to the truck, and I'll just pick you up at the door. When I looked up, I got in the truck and shut the door. There was a senior lady. She was pushing a basket, and she had some heavy water in it. And I'm like looking at her, and I'm like, how did that lady pick that water up and put it in that basket? So the Lord kept having my eyes look on her. So I watched it until she went to her truck. And when she got to her truck, she put a little bag in. And then I opened my door, and she was trying to get it up. I said, ma'am, I've got it. So I got it. I went in and I set it in her truck. And I said, you doing all right today? She said, I am now, son.
It's one of those little moments. It's one of those moments.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell on myself, but what about if you are asked to do something that you don't have any capability of doing? I'll give you an example. Teaching. I fussed a long time because I say I'm not a teacher. No, I'm not. No.